Funny how we think we leave things behind. Like you graduate, move out, get married, have a couple kids, and somewhere along the line, you figure you've packed away the past in a tidy box. But sometimes the box opens on its own. I thought I'd close that chapter years ago. Youth, first loves, all that idealistic crap you think you grow out of. I'd moved on, or at least I told myself I had. Got serious with a girl named Jenny when I was 23. She had a crooked smile and played bass in a local band. We burned bright, fast, stupid, moved in after 6 months, fought like hell after a year, and then broke it all to pieces sometime around month 20. She was the one, or so I believed. I think we both did, in our own way. But life had other plans, or maybe we just didn't have enough of a plan at all. She moved out one cold February morning while I was at work, left a note that just said, "I can't do this anymore. Take care of yourself." And that was it. She was gone. No big fight, no final words. Just silence. I didn't date much after that. Just floated. Hookups, awkward dinners, apps that went nowhere. It all felt hollow, like I'd used up whatever piece of myself had been capable of love, and now I was just imitating what I thought people did when they were trying. Years passed. I got into a routine. Worked IT support for a mid-size insurance company. Good benefits, boring days. Had a decent apartment, a cat I barely named, just called her Cat, and a habit of scrolling dating apps without ever actually meeting anyone. It was safer that way. Then one summer night, I got drunk on cheap whiskey and messaged Jenny. Her number was still saved in my phone under maybe. She replied 2 days later. "Wow, hey, how are you?" It didn't turn into anything, just a short back and forth. She was married now, had a kid, lived in Oregon, said she was happy or at least content. I said I was doing all right too. We ended with a soft, "take care," and I deleted the thread. It didn't hurt. Not exactly. It just confirmed what I already knew. I was still stuck in some weird in-between. And that's when I figured maybe this was it. Maybe some people just don't get a second chance at the real thing. Maybe I had my shot and it passed. Then came Anna, and everything I thought I knew got turned upside down. It started like nothing. Just another Tuesday. I was in line at the grocery store, half asleep and holding a six-pack and a frozen pizza. The guy in front of me was taking forever, arguing about a coupon. I looked around annoyed, and then I saw her. She was in the self-checkout lane. Short, dark red hair, glasses, wearing a denim jacket with paint smudges on the sleeve. She was trying to scan a pineapple and getting nowhere. She laughed to herself, like the machine had personally wronged her. I stared, probably longer than I should have. She looked up and caught me, and then she smiled, just a quick, polite thing, but something in it knocked me a little off balance. I didn't talk to her, just paid for my stuff and left. But something about her stuck with me that whole night. It was dumb. I didn't even know her name. A week later, I saw her again. Same store, same lane. This time, I said something stupid like, "Had any better luck with the pineapple scanner?" She laughed, said, "I've switched to bananas, much more cooperative." We talked for maybe 3 minutes. Her name was Anna. She taught art at a community center across town. She asked what I did. I said I worked in IT and immediately regretted how boring that sounded. Then she said, "Well, if you ever want to try painting instead of debugging, we've got drop-in classes on Thursdays." I showed up that week, mostly to prove to myself I still could. The class was a mess. Teenagers, old folks, people who clearly had talent, and others, like me, who were just there trying not to spill paint on the floor. Anna moved around the room laughing, helping, correcting gently. She had a way of talking that made everything feel less heavy. After class, she handed me a coffee and said, "You look terrified." I said I was. We sat on a bench outside watching the cars go by. Talked about music, old movies, nothing serious. But it felt different. comfortable. Like I didn't have to impress her. I didn't tell her about Jenny. Didn't talk about the years I'd spent wandering around inside myself. I didn't have to. She didn't ask. I went back the next week. Then the week after that, we started texting. Not every day, not too much, just enough. One Friday night she messaged, "You busy?" I said, "No." She said, "Come over. I made too much pasta." So I did. And just like that, a door opened I didn't think was ever meant for me again. The third time I went to Anna's place, it felt different. Not because anything had happened between us yet, but because I realized I didn't want to leave. She lived in a little second-floor apartment over an antique shop, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and string lights instead of overhead bulbs. Smelled like coffee and turpentine. Her cat, named Spoons for reasons I never asked, slept in a shoebox by the radiator. That night, we ate on the couch, watching a dumb documentary about people who collect vintage cereal boxes. She laughed until she cried at one guy's obsession with a discontinued box of honeycomb. I remember thinking, God, I miss this. Not the laughter exactly, but the ease of it, the way being around someone could make you feel like less of a burden. After the movie, she said, "You always look like you're somewhere else." I shrugged. I guess I spent too long trying not to be anywhere. She didn't push, just handed me a blanket and said, "You can crash here if you don't feel like driving." I slept on the couch, woke up to the smell of eggs and jazz playing from a tiny speaker. She slid a plate across the counter and said, "Good morning, mystery man." It became a rhythm after that. Art class, late nights, shared meals. I told her more each time. About the Jenny thing, about how I'd gone numb for years, about the hollow feeling that just kind of moved in and stayed. She listened without trying to fix anything. One night she looked at me and said, "You've got this sadness that doesn't talk, but I can feel it." I didn't know what to say to that, so I kissed her. It wasn't some movie moment, just quiet, like breathing after holding your breath too long. We spent the night together. No drama, no big declarations, just skin and silence and that strange kind of comfort that only shows up when your guard finally slips all the way down. The next morning, she traced her fingers across my chest and said, "Don't disappear on me." I didn't promise anything because I didn't know if I could. That week, I found myself walking past mirrors and not looking away. At work, someone said I seemed lighter. I just nodded. I wasn't ready to explain. But I knew something had changed, not in the world, in me. And that scared the hell out of me. Because when you've been alone in your head long enough, love doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like a hook in your chest. And I was already caught. The thing about getting close to someone after years of emotional drift is that it doesn't feel natural at first. It feels like wearing someone else's skin. You second guess every word, every glance. You wait for it to fall apart, because that's what you've come to expect. Anna didn't ask for anything big. She wasn't the "where is this going" type, but she showed up, checked in, made space, and I didn't know how to live in that kind of space. A few weeks after that first night together, she invited me to a small gathering at her friend's place. Nothing huge, just wine, snacks, a few people who knew her from the art center. I said yes, then spent the whole day thinking of excuses to bail. I didn't. I went, but I was stiff, quiet, made small talk that felt like chewing glass. Anna noticed. On the way home, she said, "You always tense up around new people?" I said, "It's not them, it's me." She didn't push, just nodded and turned up the radio. At her place, she curled up beside me on the couch and said, "You're allowed to be happy, you know." And I didn't say anything because I didn't know how to believe her. After that night, I started pulling back. Not obviously, just little things. Slower replies, more excuses. Long day at work. Think I'm getting sick. I felt myself doing it, sabotaging, but I couldn't stop. One weekend, she texted, "Want to go to the flea market? I need a weird lamp." I stared at the screen and felt panic rise. I didn't want to disappoint her, But I also didn't want to keep pretending I was someone who could show up without bringing a whole bag of ghosts with him. So I didn't answer right away. Waited 2 hours, then said, "Sorry, can't today. Maybe another time." She replied with a thumbs up emoji. No follow-up. And for the first time in months, I felt like I'd let something real slip just a little further out of reach. That night, I sat in my dark apartment, scrolling through old photos I'd forgotten were still backed up. Pictures of Jenny, pictures of nobody, selfies from work I'd never sent. And it hit me. I didn't know how to be seen without armor anymore. Anna didn't ask for my armor. She didn't even want to get past it. She just wanted to be close enough to hear me breathe. But I couldn't tell her that the breathing part still felt like a risk. I wanted to say, "I like you so much it hurts." Instead, I said nothing. And silence has a way of filling up a room until it pushes the good things out. It started with a random follow on Instagram, a name I hadn't seen in years. No profile picture, no bio, just a username that hit like a shot to the ribs. Jenny. I almost didn't click. But of course I did. Her account was private, but the name alone brought everything back. That apartment with the broken heater, the punk shows, that time we got caught in the rain and laughed all the way home like idiots who thought they had forever. I didn't follow back, but the past doesn't need your permission to mess with your head. That night, Anna called, just to say hi. Her voice was easy, familiar, warm, and I felt this sick knot in my chest like I was already halfway gone. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." That word again. Always the word when I don't know how to tell the truth. She said, "Come over. We'll just sit." So I did. I showed up with that knot still in my chest, and we sat on her tiny balcony, eating chips and watching the sun go down over the strip mall. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "I like this version of you, the quiet one." And I wanted to cry, because I wasn't quiet. I was scared. I stayed the night. We didn't talk much, just curled into each other like driftwood that found a dock. She fell asleep fast. I didn't. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Jenny. Not because I missed her, but because she was the last person who'd really gotten inside before I'd shut the whole thing down. I reached for my phone, opened Instagram. The follow was still there. No message. Just a connection hanging in the dark. I didn't follow back. I didn't message. I just sat there, heart racing, wondering why ghosts feel heavier than real people sometimes. The next morning, I made coffee. Anna came out wrapped in a blanket and smiled like she didn't know I'd just spent the night comparing her to someone who wasn't even real anymore. She kissed my cheek and said, "You look like you're somewhere else again." I said, "Just thinking." She nodded. "Okay, just don't stay gone too long." I didn't tell her about Jenny, didn't tell her about the follow. It didn't feel like cheating, but it didn't feel innocent either. That day I went for a long walk, no destination, just miles of sidewalk and old thoughts I couldn't shake, and I realized something. I wasn't afraid of losing Anna. I was afraid of letting her really know me and finding out I was still stuck, still broken, still haunted by a version of myself I couldn't seem to bury. A week passed, then two. I didn't talk about Jenny, didn't mention the follow. It felt stupid and small, like a pebble in your shoe you keep pretending you don't feel. But it changed things. I saw Anna less, not on purpose, not at first. I'd say I was working late, or I needed a night in. She didn't argue, she just said, "Okay," every time. But her voice got thinner, lighter, like she was already bracing for the drift. Then one Thursday night, she called. "Are we okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said automatically. "You sure?" I paused, and in that pause, everything cracked. "I don't know," I said. "I think I'm scared." She was quiet for a while, then said, "Of me?" "No," I said. "Of everything." She came over the next night anyway, brought takeout. We ate in silence. Halfway through the movie, I said, "I have to tell you something." I told her about the Instagram thing, the follow, the way it messed with my head. I didn't make it more than it was, but I didn't downplay it either. I told her I didn't message back, didn't respond, but that it still got inside. She just sat there picking at the corner of the takeout box. I don't care about some old girlfriend, she said. I care about you still looking backward while I'm right here. And I couldn't argue with that. I want to move forward, I said. I just don't know how. She stood up, grabbed her coat. That's the thing, she said. You think there's a trick to it, some hack. There's not. You just do it, or you don't. I followed her to the door. She turned and looked at me like she was seeing something she didn't want to see anymore. I'm not going to be another thing you regret. And then she left. She didn't call the next day, or the next. I didn't call either. I kept waiting for something, some sign that it wasn't too late, but it never came. A week passed, then another, and it hit me. This was what I did. I let things rot instead of ripping off the bandage. I called it caution or honesty or not wanting to hurt anyone. But the truth was I was afraid to choose. Because if you choose, you risk getting it wrong. And I'd gotten so used to loss, I'd made it a home. 3 months went by. No calls, no texts, just silence. I didn't date, didn't try. I kept going to work, kept making dinner for one, kept scrolling past photos of other people's lives that looked fuller than mine. I still checked Anna's Instagram sometimes, though I never liked anything. She posted art mostly, some sketches, a photo of her at a gallery opening with a few friends. She looked happy, not radiant, not glowing, just at peace. I missed that more than anything. How calm she made everything feel, even when my insides were a mess. Then one afternoon in late spring, I saw her, not online, not planned, just standing in line at the same grocery store where we first met. She didn't see me at first. She was holding a basket, looking at a jar of pasta sauce. I almost turned around. I almost ran like a damn coward. But I didn't. I stepped into the aisle, cleared my throat. She looked up. Eyes went wide. Then she smiled. Software. Not cold. Just tired, maybe. Hey, I said. Hey, she said. We stood there in the middle of the aisle like strangers. She looked good, healthier, like she'd been sleeping better than I had. I asked how she was. She said, doing all right. I said, I'm sorry. She nodded. I know. We didn't make plans. Didn't exchange numbers again. Just stood there until she said, well, I should get going. Yeah, I said, of course. She paused at the end of the aisle, then looked back and said, you know, I don't hate you. I swallowed hard. Thanks, she said. I just couldn't wait for you to figure yourself out. And then she was gone. I stood there holding a loaf of bread and a six-pack, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel angry or sad or anything really. Just grateful I got to know her at all. Now, I'm still here, still working the same job, still living in the same quiet apartment. I run a little more. I cook sometimes. I haven't followed anyone on Instagram in months. I think about Anna sometimes, not every day, but often enough that I don't pretend I've forgotten. And Jenny? She never reached out again. That old thread stayed closed. But sometimes I think back to that version of me, the one who got left, who thought that was the end of everything. And I kind of want to tell him, you'll get another shot, just don't waste it. I did though, I wasted it, but at least I know now, and knowing, really knowing, is better than wondering forever.